Hello, everyone. I'm Heather Joslyn, Features Editor at the New Stack, joined today by Alex Williams, our publisher and founder. Welcome to this live stream discussion from the New Stack. We're excited about today's topic, which is the Great Resignation. What's it mean for developers? As you probably noticed, developers and engineers have been taking new jobs, quitting their old jobs. They definitely have a lot of companies as workers all over the world have been putting their jobs and changing to new ones at historically high levels. And uh, judging by my Twitter feed and probably yours, they're finding new jobs very quickly. What we want to do is today is talk to some experts, some hiring managers, some recruiters, and someone who's recently changed a long-term job for a new one to get their sense of what to help you get a handle on this trend and get a benefit from it for your career. Recruiters are saying that this is the hottest tech hiring market since the 1990s. So that's pretty exciting. It's a giant game of musical chairs, spurred in part by the COVID-19 pandemic and the sudden shift in working and living conditions that brought. There's a lot of opportunity for developers and engineers, and also the potential for making decisions that impact not only you but the teams that you work with. To help us sort this out, we're gonna get started very soon. Talking to our experts, we're joined today by, in addition to Alex Williams, I mentioned previously, Taylor Desseyn, Senior Recruiter Advocate in the National Office of VACO, and host of Guidance Counselor 2.0 podcast. Hi, Taylor.
What's going on? Thanks for having me.
Thanks. We're also joined by Dileshni J, Senior Engineering Manager at PagerDuty. Hi, Dileshni.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Also joined by Emily Nakashima, VP of Engineering at Honeycomb. Hi, Emily.
Hello, hello. I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Great. And also joined by Lin Sun, Director of Open Source at SOLOJO. Lin recently decided to leave IBM, where she'd been for 19 years, is it, to take her current position. So she's got the perspective of recent job changer to offer here. Hi, Lin.
Hey, everyone. I'm super excited to be here. You are right. It is 19 years.
Okay. And also Shanis Windland, Vice President of HR at VMWARE. Hi, Shanis.
Hi. Nice to see you all.
So we're going to start unpacking the Great Resignation and what it means for you. And afterward, our panel will be taking your questions about navigating career decisions in this red-hot tech job market. Feel free to submit your questions at any time on the platform that you're watching this on. And we'll get to them later in the hour, or perhaps in between some of the questions I have and that Alex has. You can ask any panel member specifically or the panel in general, and we're here to hear your thoughts. So let's get started. There's been a lot said already about this Great Resignation. We know that the tech industry in general has a high turnover rate, but it does seem to be accelerating. If you're a developer, what factors should you weigh, or questions should you ask if you're trying to debate whether to stay put or to jump ship, especially if you see people around you starting to do that. Lin, you recently had to make that decision. What would you tell people to consider?
Yeah, so certainly watch out for people around you is the first important thing I did in my case. Like starting last June, my manager left, so that was like an alarming moment to me. And then towards the end of the year, in December last year, my distinguished engineer, which I kind of like technically report to, he left. So that was another alarming moment to me. So I started once, it's like people you closely work with, especially people you look up to in the organization left. Then I start to question myself, what's really important to me? What really matters to me? Is the job really, I feel excited to come to work every day? Is there any people you can learn and continue, learning and energize yourself at your job. So I start to ask myself these questions, which needs me to also, start to see what's available out there. And thankfully, I build great relationship with people I work with. And, there are people outside of our companies that are reaching out to me. So it made all these become a lot easier.
Emily, do you have some thoughts about what someone should ask themselves?
Absolutely. I would love to offer a counterpoint to that as well. I think Lin was in a very special position of having been in the same place for quite a while and having achieved a lot of seniority. And for folks who are maybe not quite at that level, I think it's really worth asking also if there are opportunities for staying behind. I think there's a lot of things that can be difficult about a high turnover environment, but it can also be a source of opportunity. Having been through that at a past company, it was a great way to see many parts of the problem space of the company at once and honestly have chances to move up really quickly. So I think you've got a way. Can you advance in your current role? Can you, make lemonade out of lemons, or will you get a better opportunity and a better sense of connection going somewhere else? It's certainly a tough call.
Yeah, I'd love to add to that too, Emily, that just because other folks are leaving, they may be doing that for their own reasons. It doesn't necessarily signal that there's something wrong in your organization or that you should be panicking that something's happening in the company. Given the topic of this, there's a lot of folks moving around right now. So I think it's more of a macro than a micro sort of situation. So make sure you really evaluate what's happening, how you feel about your company and your career opportunity before deciding to jump. So.
Yeah, I guess I want to add to that. I totally agree with what you said. So other people leaving is something make an impact on you, but you have to watch out for your own interest. You have to question yourself, what's most important to you, and are you reaching your goals in the current company?
Well said, Lynn, for sure.
I just wanted to add, we have a comment already from Daniel Thompson, who believes that it's probably more of a great migration of employees rather than a giant resignation. Not a lot of folks just resigning to start a job search. Does that line up with what people are seeing? Are you seeing people just quit and then start a job search, or?
Yeah, most people I saw, they already landed a job. So I think part of the reason people are leaving is they start to question themselves, right? They have a lot more time because of COVID. People are not traveling, right? They save a lot of time. A lot of people are not even taking vacation or taking reduced vacation. So they have a whole lot of more time to think. And most people I see, they already landed a new job, when they resign. So I think that's the best case. Unless you don't want to work at all, I highly recommend you to have something landed before you resign.
If I can add to that, I've actually seen a bit of the opposite of people resigning to get some time off before they figure out their next step. I think a lot of folks have had a lot to juggle during the pandemic, especially if you're a parent, you had kids at home while you were working. Trying to balance all of those things have taken a toll on people, and they kind of want that break to reset, recuperate before jumping into a new role. So I think there's like two camps, I guess, I'd say right now.
So burnout might be a factor for some people.
Yeah, possibly. For sure. Yeah.
If you do the questions that you need to ask yourself change if you're depending on, say, how senior you are, your particular skill set, if you have a skill set that maybe is or isn't in great demand.
I think you need to. I think the biggest question is you need to ask yourself why you want to move, right? Because I think what's going on right now is I think people are looking over their shoulders and be like, my friend left, I need to leave. Okay, just because your friend left, like if your friend jumps off a bridge, you're going to jump off a bridge too, right? And maybe so. But I think people need to realize they need to dig down and find their why, right? The whole Simon Sinek thing, finding your why, right? And I think people, when it comes to the job search, money, I think, is a thing. Money is driving up a lot of developers, and that could be another part of this conversation. But I think, is it, is your office going back to on-site? Are you dealing with micromanagement? Are you dealing with, legacy technology that you don't want to work with anymore? But I think you need to figure out and find your why. What happens is I see so many individuals in the job search right now. They're like, I want to get a new job, I want to land a new job, or I land a new job, and they're unhappy 6 months later. And I'm like, what the heck? And they were like, well, I just was kind of looking around casually, and this one kind of fell into my lap, and I just took it. Right. And so, again, it's digging in and finding your why before you start the job search.
Yeah. And I think there's, again, to macro, this sense that people just need something to change. They're burnt out. They haven't taken vacation. They've been, homeschooling and working. So maybe getting a new job will fix some of those things. And at the end of the day, I think you're going to run into similar problems, challenges at kind of any company. So just make sure that you're not sort of reacting to those things and really figuring out what's going to make you happy at work, and trying to separate that from some of the other things that might be happening because of the pandemic.
It sounds like a pretty immature engineer who was just saying, oh yeah, I just kind of want to change. And 6 months later, here I am at my job. And I mean, I think there's probably a lot more people who are much more mature than that, in the market who have different opinions about that, I mean, and I guess my question is, for people for people who are in engineering management teams, even if you do have some attrition, how are you trying to keep people, from leaving? I would imagine that people who are in the middle of their career and doing very well, they don't just pick up and go. There's real reasons for that.
Well, I think what's happened is that we've gotten to a point where I think a lot of managers and a lot of companies got set in their ways, right? And then what happened is this COVID hit, and then bam, everything's turned upside down, right? Like, I mean, I'm telling you, with what I'm seeing in my neck of the woods and dealing with engineers across the country, on average, Nashville was underpaying to the national market 30 to 50 grand.
Underpaying
30 to 50 grand. And so if you put it in that perspective, not only is pay an issue, but then let's face it, when it's national now, if you were just doing this tech stack here in Nashville because you were only stuck in Nashville, now you're getting calls from across the country working on a bunch of open source tech, because Nashville primarily is a Microsoft town. Yes, we have open source, but it's a very heavy Microsoft.NET town. So now I have a ton of .NET engineers going into the more open source space because they're good engineers, but cities can be so closed-minded and only hiring developers and engineers that are only set for .NET developers. We need .NET people. Right now, I see a bunch of companies hiring polyglot engineers. They just want good people, and so that's just turned everything upside down.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I've seen like the recruiters are more aggressive because of the pandemic, right? So like Facebook and many other companies starts to accept developers from anywhere in the United States. So some of the jobs that may not be available to me or to other developers in the past, that like they would never consider us, but now it's all part of the opportunities on the table. And the other side of the angle from a developer perspective, it's often a lot easy to get much better compensation just by moving, right? Because it's so much harder to get to the next level in your current company or get a higher pay rate than you want it to be. It ends up just so much easy when you move. You get a good chunk of increase and compensation just much easily and naturally.
I want to circle back to a couple things in a minute. Well, I definitely want to get to the question of recruiters and persistent recruiters and how to deal with them. But the issue of salary is something that I think I'd like to take up. What's your advice for getting, if you're a job seeker in this market, for getting salary information from prospective employers and navigating that whole conversation? So I know Emily's, seems interested in that topic. You want to?
Yeah, I
some
love this
thoughts?
question. I really love it. First of all, I'm so grateful for the new Colorado law that has encouraged us all to start putting compensation ranges on our job descriptions. That's a really cool change that I'm really happy to see. But I think, for candidates talking to companies that are not hiring in Colorado that aren't subject to that, I think a lot of candidates don't realize that you can just ask. We have switched our process so that we always disclose the like salary band ranges for the role to the candidate in the first screening. But even if that doesn't happen, I think you can always ask, and I think it's really it can be really empowering, and it can help you spend less time on the interview process, right? If you know up front, and that's something that's going to be really important to your decision, you can save everyone time.
One question that I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to echo the same of what Emily was saying. So I'm based out of Toronto, Canada. Our market has changed quite drastically with US companies now hiring in Canada as well. Like, it's expanded to hire anyone from North America. So salaries have changed across the board here. And I always encourage people to do your homework and also just be upfront with what your expectations are. And since the market is changing quite rapidly, the recruiters will also take that into account when they're thinking through the offer. If your ask is way above their budgeted amount, they will be upfront with you. We are pretty upfront at PagerDuty if our budgeted amount is way off of what a candidate is asking. So yeah, definitely just keep in mind what you want and what's the amount that you would be happy with, and just be open about it.
One of the things I hear about, and I wonder on your